Republicans cannot help themselves.
Republicans,
yes, to borrow the words from Sam, cannot help themselves. They hear the word women or someone bring up the opposite sex in any sort of manner, and there's like something that goes off in their brain. What little brains they have. And they just can't help themselves. Most recently, we talked about it last week. Sam talked about it last week. You couldn't not see this. Mike Huckabee saying what he said about women who are dependent on the government and Uncle Sugar and whatever. And if you play that video with the one with David Gregory, I have a little bit of Mike Huckabee. They played a little bit of Mike Huckabee off the top. Let's play that.
Oh, this is David Gregory talking to Rand Paul.
Well, we have a little bit of Mike Huckabee up top.
Oh, up top.
Yeah,
Okay,
there we
gotcha.
go.
If the Democrats want to insult the women of America by making them believe that they are helpless without Uncle Sugar coming in and providing for them a prescription each month for birth control because they cannot control their libido or their reproductive system without the help of the government, then so be it. Let us take that discussion all across America because women are far more than the Democrats have played them to be.
Press pause. Okay. So, Sunday morning shows obviously want to talk about this. And who better to have on your Sunday morning show than a white Republican to talk about what Mike Huckabee said? A white male Republican. I'm sorry, I should clarify that. A white male Republican. And that Republican is Rand Paul. So Rand Paul goes on Meet the Press with David Gregory. And he makes the case that the war on women is non-existent. It's just malarkey. War on women. There's no war on women. And his reasoning is quite the reasoning and actually goes perfectly with what Long Doggy 67, our listener, called today's show, the delusion of the privileged. Let's take a listen.
Is this helpful?
Well, I think we have a lot of debates in Washington that get dumbed down and are used for political purposes. This whole sort of war on women thing, I'm scratching my head because if there was a war on women, I think they won. The women in my family are incredibly successful. I have a niece at Cornell Vet School, and 85% of the young people there are women. In law school, 60% are women. In med school, 55%. My younger sister's an OBGYN with 6 kids and doing great.
Wait for it.
I don't see so much that women are downtrodden.
Here
I
it
see
is.
women rising up and doing great things. And in fact, I worry about our young men sometimes because I think the women are out competing the men in our world.
But my question about
I think we got Rand Paul on the line. Rand, why are you worried about the poor men?
I worry about the poor men not being entrepreneurial enough. There's plenty of ways to make money in America. As an example, my father created racist newsletters. Other people do well through creating fake stock tips. There's a number of ways in which people can make money. And in fact, I'm afraid that women are not going to be as easily able to sexually harass in colleges anymore. I remember I used to take women out to the lake and force them to worship Aqua Buddha, and I'm afraid that my son will not be able to do the same things anymore.
Thank you, Rand. But
Rand Paul.
Unbelievable.
No, but you know what?
First of all, I want to get to this first. There's 2 things specifically he says here. Well, 3 that I want to point out, but let me get to the first one. This whole sort of war on women thing, I'm scratching my head because if there's a war on women, I think they won. And he goes on to use his niece being in Cornell Vet School as an example. Yeah, the women in my family are doing great. Wow. I mean, really, the women in a family where, not one actually, but 2 of its family members are wealthy congressmen or have a history in politics. Wow, they're doing great. That's not really too hard to imagine. And I think there's less to do with them being women. Because this war on women is not just a war on women in terms of, all women. There's specifically a war on women, and it has to do with poverty. And it has to do with women who are poor. Or even middle class, who don't have all the luxuries and privilege of the Paul family. And also, the other fact I wanted to mention was This war on women is not just about business success, which I wanna get to actually and mention how Paul said he's worried about the men. Are you kidding me? The poor men. Men still out earn women by 33 cents on the dollar, and women also earn less than men, no matter what their level of education, their industry, or their job is. And I want to go back and say how it's not just about professional standings or business acumen. The war on women is about their bodies and their
Bodies.
their reproductive rights and their health care. To just say that my niece is doing well, and to bring up a stat that other wealthy or at least well-off, privileged women are doing well, is to say there's no war on women and we should worry about the poor men.
Well, and
I want to bring up with things that have to do with money, education-wise or business-wise, not talking about, their rights over themselves or their right to be seen as a human being and not as chattel.
Well, that's not even a factor, but that could be a great
really.
slogan for the Republican Party, for the libertarians. My cousin's doing fine, or my son's doing fine. My fill in the blank is doing fine. But the other important point to raise is that, it's not about lower income earning men. It's about lower income earning people who do need to be worried about, and lack of opportunity, which we've talked about. Does Rand Paul have anything to say, any policy, any inclination ever to help those people? Of course not. No. So he's not only saying this totally ludicrous thing about women, he's citing a group of people, in which, in this instance, men who aren't having social mobility or educational opportunity right now, as a cudgel against women. He doesn't even care about those men to begin with.
No, of course not. Yeah,
it's it's cynical and disgusting in every way possible.
And if you're wondering, maybe one of the other morning shows had a good guest on to discuss this Mike Huckabee incident and the general war on women. Candy Crowley over on Meet the Press, who I'm sure would be great on this issue, had on, who did she have on? Probably a woman to talk about. Oh, no, I'm sorry. She also had Rand Paul on the show to discuss Huckabee's comments in the war on women. And Rand Paul pretty much said exactly what he said on David Gregory's Meet the Press. Like, verbatim to Candy Crowley on State of the Union or whatever it is on CNN. So great going, Rand Paul, great going Republicans, and great going media for covering this war on women by talking to a man who is of the party who is waging this war on women.